Hey everybody, how's it going? So welcome back to Reigate Lake and welcome to episode 17 of Reel Up My Park from scratch. And this is a very special episode for me because this is the 250 subscriber episode. And guys, I can't believe I've hit 250. There are 250 people out there who like this series enough and like me prattling on for an hour an episode that you want to see more. And guys, I can't thank you enough for that. That's actually overwhelming, especially as this was just a bit of a passion project to start with whilst I was on furlough from work. I never thought in a million years that I'd be able to start taking this seriously. So whether you've subscribed or whether you're just viewing, I don't care. You guys mean the absolute world to me. And as you already know from all of the previous episodes, thanks to your commitment, your support, your comments and your encouragement, this is what we've done. This is Reigate Lake. This is our UK ultra detail park, mid-budget, although we're starting to encroach maybe on the likes of Alton Towers now, especially with the particular size and scale and everything that we've got going on. But this is the park. This is what we're doing, and this is episode number 17. So the eagle-eyed amongst you probably spotted the CCL going on in the background, and you've also probably spotted some kind of things around and about that I've not really told you about. So CCL, obviously, Roman numerals for 250. So this is going to be the 250 special. And I've decided we're going to need a coaster for this. And again, we need to be careful with what we put in here. So yes, this is a special episode and we need to do something very special for it. But we need to be careful with what we're actually doing because it still needs to fit into the lore of the park. So what I've decided is that this is going to be a wooden coaster. Going to be very similar in stature to the likes of maybe Colossus at Hyder Park, just not so tall and not so extreme. The park itself doesn't have an airtime coaster, and so a wooden coaster felt like it was a good one. So what I would say now, though, and I'm making this deal with you guys now, is that this wooden coaster will be RMC'd at 1,000 subscribers. So, community, do your thing. You know what to do. 1,000 subscribers, and I will RMC this Woodie. That's my deal. That's my deal to you. So anyway, this is what we were doing in the last episode. We were building up the hill. So we were taking our inspiration from Hershey Park. And so we've got the stairs on the one side, and we've got the actual hill on the other side. And I've reloaded this park actually today, a couple of days. Like I've let it rest, and I've come back and I really like it. So yeah, it's looking good. And this is the area we're going to be working in for our new wooden coaster. So I already know how I want this to look. I've been planning this out in my head for quite some time. So I know how this is going to look. I roughly know what the layout is going to be. And I also know I'm going to need to do some kind of custom supporting to it, and I'm really not looking forward to that bit, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. And so this is the second part of the area that we did then. We just did the Screaming Swing area and also the Drop Tower area. And then we just put a couple of restaurants and everything in just to bring the area together. And I guess this also starts the process of getting it out onto Steam, right? So episode 17, we've only really got a couple of episodes left to do stuff before we start thinking about the getting ready. So episode 19 will be the getting ready for the workshop, and episode 20 will be the tour, right? So getting quite close to you guys actually playing this park. Anyway, that's enough of me prattling on because you guys just want to see the coaster built, right? So let's actually go to the first update and see how it turns out, shall we? Alright then, so we've got ourselves a wooden coaster, and this is actually probably about the 4th iteration of a layout. So I had a layout that was a little bit like Megaphobia at Oakwood. I had a GCI, it's a similar layout to Wicker Man, and I actually ended up falling back for a layout that I didn't really want to start with. But the more I thought about this park and the more I sat and watched the park, the more I fell in love with the idea of doing an Intimin prefab. So this is a little bit deceiving because this is what we ended up with. It's huge. So the kind of thought process I went through here is more around this whole idea that the park would have been introducing cheap thrills. that they could install quickly, and they were unique. So at the time that Intimin were doing their prefab coasters, they were ridiculously cheap because they're factory made. They don't have to be made on site. They haven't got to get the wood in. They haven't got to cut the wood to shape and size and everything on site. They're all made in a factory and it's shipped in, and therefore it makes it much cheaper. But it also means that you get more bang for your buck. So for the amount that this park, that Reigate Lake, would have spent on a normal wooden coaster of the size of Megaphobia, they could have actually extended it to Intimin and had a much longer, bigger thrill. And if you remember back to the lore of the park being introduce as many thrills as you possibly can as long as they're unique, this would have fitted that lineup perfectly. And then as I was designing the coaster, I had it in many different configurable layouts. So it sort of came out this way so I could still put the rapids in here. And then it also came out this way, and it was starting to interact with what I'm going to be putting here. And I actually ended up thinking, well, no, this is on the side of a cliff, so it should be a terrain coaster. And again, thinking of that cost element, you know, how much or how little wood can you use to build as much of a thrill as possible? And I thought, you know, they actually would utilise the hill more. So this has ended up being a bit of a terrain coaster. So if you remember to the original part of this, first part of this episode, none of this terrain was here. It was just a sheer drop. And so I've come in and I've coloured in the side of the hills and everything. And obviously I need to do some smoothing and some final touches and stuff. But this actually ended up being much better than I actually wanted it to be. Particularly as a lot of the coaster happens well below station level, and in order for it to return back to station level, it pretty much has to use all of its kinetic energy, and you're about to see this now as it's coming over the rise. And we're going to do a tour of this ride in a minute anyway. So this does also mean that because it's going to be an Intimin prefab, the amount of custom supporting I need to do, there we go, there it's just cresting, crawling over the crest. Yes, and because it is an Intimin prefab, it means then that the amount of custom supporting I've got to do on this is actually not so much. It's just along the sides of these like larger hills where you would tend to find that the track would shake, so it needs a bit more supporting either side. But do you know, for this type of coaster, the supports that come in game are actually pretty good. It's not like the booster bikes where you have to really tear that apart and start that again. The supports for the wooden coaster are okay. I mean, I would love to have the patience and the dedication to custom support the whole thing, you know. But actually comparing this to the likes of Colossus at Hyde Park, it's fit for purpose. It does what it needs to do. The supports are actually very similar. So let's go on a tour, shall we? This is the view I always wanted. So you've probably seen me down at this level before, talking about what's going to come here, and this is exactly what I wanted. The queue coming round the front, coming down the hill, and I've added in a few steps. Obviously, there's going to be disabled access coming past the exit, right? So you don't need to worry about disabled access in the queue lines. So yeah, this drop out of the station and into the first brake run, which is just down here, and then it enters into your lift hill. The lift hill is 32 degrees, which is about right for an Intimin prefab. It's probably on the upper end of the degrees that it would be allowed, but yeah, 32 degrees is what we've got. And into the first drop, maximum drop angle of 60 degrees, and it comes down beyond the original terrain level of the station and the bottom of the lift hill, because it's using the actual hill itself. Look, and comes into a turn. And it's obviously overbanked, with heartline rolling as well. So it sort of swings out as if it's got a fat backside. So that's always what I imagine when doing... No, I don't imagine fat backsides when I do coasters. That'd be weird. No, I always imagine that the back end of the train slides out from behind you when you're going around a bend, and that's how you know that you've got a good heartline roll. So anyway, it comes into your first airtime hill, and it's really drawn out. And this is the beauty of Intimin wooden coasters, is that because they're prefabbed and because they're not made on site, you can make these really smooth, drawn out, long hills. You're not having to make them shallow or anything. You can do some really awesome stuff with them. So yeah, come into your first one, and then it carries on straight into a slightly smaller second one, so you get slightly stronger airtime, and it also comes down the hill a little bit more, so it's already picked up a bit more speed. Come around, and then into your first overbanked turn to a 90 degree, sort of like creating a dog leg, and then it comes down again into the valley, and again it's slightly lower than this other one would be. So we're still now actually quite a height difference between the top of the lift hill over here and this point in the ride, so it's picked up quite a bit of speed. But then it loses just enough speed to come around this corner here, and it creates into a snaky S-bend down. And this was the point actually where I was starting to think to myself, at 1,000 subscribers, now that I've laid this down as a challenge to you guys in the community, how on earth am I going to RMC and out and back? Like, how do you even do that? So I needed to add a few variations, and then I started to look at coaster layouts and thought, actually, just a simple out and back wooden coaster wouldn't do for this park. They would want to build as much into this if they go into Intimin and wanting to get some stuff out of it. So I decided to make the second half of this coaster a bit more twisty and turny, and actually that then gives me more scope for future plans if I'm RMCing it, because this snake dive could be all sorts. There could be an inversion here, there could be outbanked, there could be all sorts going on in this area that makes it slightly different. And then these airtime hills, they then lend themselves quite nicely to the full 180 degree high five passes and stuff. So anyway, let's not talk about that. You need to get me to 100 first. Sorry, to 1,000 first. So anyway, we come into the snake dive, into a small air hop around the corner, and then into a brake run. And so this is probably about the 2/3 of the way around the ride. It's about 30 seconds, which is about right in game. And then enters a figure of 8 turnaround. I didn't want to just bring this straight down this way and into the brake run, because obviously you've got brake run here, brake run here. You need to have some kind of track in the middle, right? So I decided to do a figure of 8. And again, thinking of that RMC element, you know, what would I do in an RMC? So yeah, brought it into a figure of 8, couple of more bunny hops, and then actually that then starts to kill the momentum enough to bring it nicely into the brake run. And by the time it hits the brake run, it's just got a nice little speed, and then it just gently crawls back into the station. And so that is how the layout looks. And so what I then wanted to do is have the queue line in this gap here. I've intentionally kept all of this area here free for future development. I don't know whether that's going to be the next episode or whether that's going to be the first episode of Phase 3. I haven't decided yet, but anyway, that you've probably seen it in the graveyard already, that there's something waiting over there to come into this space. So it's there. Look out for it. It's if you look hard enough, it's there. Anyway, so I wanted this bit in the middle to be the queue line, and I didn't want it to be flat. So most of the other queue lines that we've done in this entire park, they're all on flat ground. Even over in the stand-up, other than the actual stairs, it sits on flat ground, despite the fact that the thing is on a hill already, so it's already at a different level. The actual queue itself is on flat land. So I wanted to toy and start to experiment with the idea of not having a flat land queue, particularly as we're going up a hill here anyway. So we've taken the time to make all of these steps and made all of this like look awesome as a hill. So let's use this to its advantage. So I've decided that the main plaza area of the ride is going to be here, not at the bottom, because I wanted this queue walk around. I thought that was quite important to the actual ride itself. So, but then I've brought it down some steps, round the actual past the lift hill into a bit of a cattle pen, and then it comes underneath the lift hill and into another cattle pen, into what would be essentially a queue extension. So on busy days they would then open this queue line, and then bring it round, up some more steps, up some more steps, and up some more steps, and then into the station. So I need to find a strategy of emergency exit for these queues, because at the moment as it is, we've got no access to anywhere that you can evacuate this queue area quickly. So that's going to be my next part of my design, is finding a way. But I think it's probably going to end up being through the maintenance shed anyway, which is going to be here, so that's fine. We can sort that. It's no problem. And then when you come out of the station, obviously you're going to have your photo booth. That's going to be here, smaller photo booth. And then it's kind of going to come back out onto the actual main pathway, and then we've just got the restaurant here. So that's how the area is actually looking. So I already know what my station is going to look like, and I'm buzzing to get this done. So I think that's where I'm going to leave this update, and I will see you for the next one. Alright then, so you may need to forgive the fact that there's a few floating things in places they shouldn't be floating things, but look at how this view is coming on. This is exactly as I pictured it when I was designing in the last episode this hill and how I wanted this to sit on the skyline and everything. This is just turning out exactly as I wanted it, and even better. When you're walking from the rest of the park past the drop tower, you just look straight up the lift hill. And so yeah, I'm really chuffed with how this is starting to come together. This is, like I say, exactly as I pictured it. So the last update then, I've been working on the station area and also the maintenance area as well. So like I say, I've just put some roofs and stuff in. My next port of call will be the queue lines and the custom supporting where it's needed, and I think that's actually going to be quite difficult to do. Because of the in-game supports are already relatively good, but just out of shape. So, anyway, let's cross that bridge when it comes to it, shall we? Let's have a look at the station. So, I need to give a little bit of credit on this one, actually. So, when I have been doing some work with the Planet Coaster artists and Jeremy, the absolutely awesome artist over there. As you know, I was working on a wooden coaster. That unfortunately has of yet not seen the light of day. There are still plans to get it out there. It still exists as a project. But what I've done for this is I've used the frame of the station itself as a bed for this station, and then just made it my own real work here. But there's some of the stuff that Jeremy did in that station as well. So I need to just give credit, or I want to give credit for some of the stuff that he pointed out that I was missing in the station originally, because if it weren't for the stuff that he's pointed out, it wouldn't exist in this station either. So the idea is that I've gone for that very Intimin style station roof, where you have the cross beams tied up by rope. So this idea of crossbeam is a very Intimin thing. You tend to find this actually on their log flumes more than you do their roller coasters, but yeah, it's this is the sort of style that I'm going for. And also I wanted the wood to contrast slightly with the beams and everything, and everything that we've got going on over in this area on the hill as well. So it complements each other but juxtaposes at the same time. So inside the actual station itself then, we've got all of these wood trellises, and I've made sure that everything is supporting. So everything that's like on an angle has some kind of a support, and this is how these beams actually work. So just like I did with the station, with the bridges over on the lake, they've also got the bolts and everything in place where they should be. And also along here as well, so we've got two beams that are supporting, and each two of those are bolted. Then you've got your bolts along this side, and then you've got your cabling and your wiring. This was mainly Jeremy's work. The cabling and the wiring, where you've got the lights and everything in the actual station itself. And then we've got the railings and stuff. It obviously needs touching up, and it needs its final pass and for the TMTK items and everything, but it's sort of like it's coming together. And then we come out this way, and then this is different to Timber Run. This is very much start from scratch but use the base frame. So we have like a walkway that comes out past the brake run. And then we've got the transfer track itself, and this is actually on a hill, and I quite like this actually. It's like all of the other transfer tracks I've done have all been on a concrete pad, and it's all been very stark. But this is on the side of a hill. I think it actually works out quite nicely, because it also opens up different discussions about safety as well. So I've just put some netting in along here just to stop like people from falling down into the brake run. So if, for example, someone was here and they did happen to fall whilst the transfer track was in operation, they would get squashed, right? So you don't really want to put people in a position where they're going to injure themselves because they can't escape. So you put some netting and everything in here just to stop people from dying. But then inside the actual maintenance shed itself, this has been very much inspired by Megaphobia at Oakwood, and the maintenance shed that they've got over there. Very open, very clean, very crisp, very clear, but theirs is raised, so they have platforms and everything, as opposed to it being on the side of the hill. So just with this principle in mind of the people falling through the tracks, what I've done here is I've put a concrete pad that's been bricked up underneath it, so that it's not actually too far of a fall, but it also gives the workers a bit of work area for them to actually come down into the maintenance area and do what they need to do. But then they're also separated enough from the operating live track that they don't actually need to have like any kind of barriers and stuff here. So it's quite strange how the health and safety of this bit works, because you think it would be more serious than that, but it's not, because you've got a natural barrier between the two. So, and if you were to fall down, you'd just crawl under the track and you'd be safe. So you're okay there. All the usual stuff all along here. So the fire exit, the fire points, the rope, the warning symbols for the sirens and everything for when trains are in motion. And then you've also got your electricity boxes and everything just to activate the tracks. And then what I've done here is I've just put some bollards at the end just to stop the trains from derailing and decoupling and stuff. And also this entrance point here. So we kind of got this in the SLC area as well. So I wanted to make sure that if you were carrying anything, or you were wheeling anything or going up ramps and stuff, that you've got something that would physically stop you from falling down the other side of the track, because there is a bit of a drop there. Look, it is a bit of a safety hazard. So the bollards are there just as they're there to stop you from doing that. So and again, it's exactly the same design as the stations, though, because you're coming right the way through it. It's part of the ride experience. And so I wanted to make sure that it was still consistent. And the more I watch this ride, the more I quite like how it crawls into the brake run. It's just the perfect end. It just loses that momentum just nicely. You don't have to have any sudden braking or anything. So I was a bit dubious about it to start with. I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if that works, but it actually does, surprisingly. And then the other bits that I've just done then, really, I've touched up some of the area down here. So this is like starting to come together with the look and feel. So I've just carried on with the lining of the rock and everything along the pavement, and then I just put the retaining wall in. I've always wanted this to be a retaining wall. So my next part, when I do the queue line fences and everything, this is all going to come into its own. And then over this side, I've just started to put roads in. I don't know if I'm going to keep these as actual paths, by the way, or whether I'm going to use the tarmac terrain paint. I haven't actually decided yet, but that's pretty much how I want it to be. An access point here, and then there will be a road and an access point that comes around this way, with a strategy, which I haven't worked out yet, to bring it underneath the coaster and out this way for something else. So that's my plan. But before I can do the strategy to bring the road out this way, which I think is probably going to be here, isn't it, realistically speaking? But anyway, before I can do that strategy, this episode needs to happen. So shh, it's a secret. So with that in mind, my next part of this coaster is to get the queue line done and these custom supports. I just don't know what to do with these. I know, like, here is going to be relatively easy because it's a blank canvas, so it's just a case of bringing the supports out. I know exactly where they need to be, and I know exactly what I need to do to get them to do it, but it's difficult in places because the supports are good, but not quite good enough for the natural supports. But like, for example, you want your custom supporting to be wherever there's laterals, so especially on a wooden coaster. So anywhere that the train is going to have any applied pressure as it's going around the corner, like for example here, the train's going to apply a lot of pressure along this top area, so you're going to want some kind of lateral supporting. Look, just like that. Good timing that, wasn't it? So you're going to want some kind of lateral pressure and lateral supporting going on to stop it from swaying as much, give it a bit of sturdiness. It's not even a word, is it, sturdiness? Yeah, so, but then you don't need it where it's not high. So like these, for example, possibly quite fine, because it's not actually too high. Need to just see how the coaster feels. And then this one here probably doesn't need it here either because it's not that high. So anyway, I'm actually going to carry on and just do that because I'm talking about it and sort of talking myself out of it, and I should just get on with it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll see you for the next update, where hopefully it should be done. Let's see, shall we? Let's just check. Let's just go. I mean, this viewpoint just keeps getting better and better with each update, and I kind of got myself to a point where I needed to force myself to stop because I was starting to get a little bit carried away, because I did so much that I thought, oh no, I need to do some little bits and some little bits and some more little bits just to have something to show you. But now I've realised that I've now got loads to show you. So here we go. It's now starting to really, really take shape. So I've done all of the queue line fencing, and unlike previous updates, I've also done all of the concrete padding as well, because I wanted to make sure that everything was in place for the queue line and then I let the park run and to see how popular this coaster was going to be when the park is at full pelt. And I realised that I don't have enough queue line for this coaster because its rating is around 1400 at its max when it's not like doing its thing with stacking and whatever. And so I needed more queue. And so that's what I've had to do. I've had to put more queue line in. So I've ended up doing the concrete as well, because doing the concrete on hills is actually quite difficult. It's quite time consuming. So I've ended up doing that. So I decided to use the fencing from elsewhere in the park, just because it's this idea of wooden coaster, so it would have wooden fencing, right? But the park itself would have probably skimped on a little bit of money and still used the metal bar fencing for all of the cattle pens and everything. And then each of the cattle pens is actually a skippable queue in its own right, so it's an extended queue line. So if they wanted to cut the queue off here, oh, I've missed a bit. If they wanted to cut the queue off here, then they could. If they wanted to cut the queue off here, they could. If they wanted to do it here, they could. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going with that. Inside the station itself, it's had its roof added, so now this is how it's going to look on the inside. It just needs its TMTK detailing now, so you know, things like the emergency exit signs and its baggage handling signs, the ride staff, the operator booth, all of that sort of stuff inside here. And then there's big changes over this area, so this is now... well, I keep saying it's turned out way better than I thought it was going to. So, photo booth, as you would expect, you know, there's going to be nothing groundbreaking in here. This took quite a few iterations, actually, of design to actually get to something that I was happy with. And I still think these are too big, but the problem is the TMTK items that we end up using are also quite big as well. And I went to Thorpe Park last night, actually. That's why my voice is probably a bit gruff for this update. And I've noticed that photo booths are actually quite big. Like, they do take up quite a lot of space, even though they tend to be tucked away. I was looking at all of the different ways that photo booths are configured, and they're all configured the same way. So this is actually about the right size for a photo kiosk. You would probably get away with not having these two extended walls if you really wanted to cut down space, but you would still need something here. So yeah, and the idea of this photo booth is actually hiding the maintenance area and the brake run area and everything backstage. So yeah, this kind of serves a blocking purpose. And then coming over to the restaurant, this is now exactly as I wanted it to look. Obviously it needs finishing. It's not done. Don't get excited. So yeah, this is how I wanted it to be. I wanted this to have a really low entrance point. So all of the other ones have got like the full 4-meter entrance ways and everything. But no, I wanted this to be really low, and the ceiling inside is going to be low, but most of it is going to be exposed and outside. So this isn't an enclosed restaurant outlet. This is going to be one of those grab and go style places, a little bit like we've got down by the log flume, in the sense that that's probably more of a buffet style thing where you can just grab some food, sit in and do whatever. But I wanted the idea of this courtyard to come to life, so this is what I've started to do. And it wouldn't be an episode without trying to hide pathing misdemeanors without mulch and flowers, right? So guess what we're doing. So yeah, I'm just getting the feel for how I want this area to be, and I toyed with quite a few pathing areas, and I settled for the Victorian brick, partly because we're using it elsewhere. We're using it down here and whatever, so it's consistent with the area theme, and partly because all of the other ones that I wanted to use, I needed to layer them so many times that it just created far too much Z fighting that I was happy with. So as you can see, like, these are layered every 1 meter to make it sort of on an angle properly. And the reason that it's on an angle is for this here. If it was square, it would jut out and it just looks really, really stupid. And it felt like this pathway here would carry on a line down this way, so that it's a clear separation between the courtyard and the entrance to Storm. And so that's kind of where we're heading with this. And then inside, it's just your typical grab and go restaurant, really. Obviously, again, detailing needed. But it's just like your 4 outlets, well, 3, because staff members decided it's just going to go on AWOL. And then I've hidden other facilities in here. So like, I've hidden toilets down the back here, and I've hidden a staff unit down the back here, just because we don't have any game playable stuff that we need to. I a proper full-on toilet block up here in some capacity, but this is going to be future episode stuff where it's going to be incorporated. So for now I've just put the toilets in here just because otherwise the closest toilets we've got are down the bottom here and then way over this way or way over this way. So we need, and this area is going to be servicing quite a lot of people once this roller coaster is open, because it does attract quite the number of guests. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm going. And now this courtyard is now starting to take shape quite nicely. And the reason, by the way, that I wanted this to be so low is from the courtyard, it's hiding all of the misdemeanors when it comes to maintenance areas and everything. So it's a bit of suspending of belief and whatever. We say nothing about the queue of Tristorm being right next to it. I mean, just say nothing, right? But no, the main reason was this view here. So I wanted to have the coaster slightly obscured by the building, but I also wanted to have a key focal point of the courtyard. And so now pretty much wherever you sit in the courtyard, you're going to be able to see the first drop of the wooden coaster, but you can't really see anything else. And so that's what I was going for there. That's why it's in an L. That's why I decided to stop building this in the previous episode. Everything all starts to make sense, right? So there we go. Look at that, just in time. So yeah, I wanted that view, and then when the roof is on, it's going to obscure some of the supports and everything a bit more. So it just the view literally will just go over the top of the roof. So that's the main reason that I wanted it sort of to hold off. And oh yeah, there's the big thing that we've forgotten to talk about. We haven't forgotten to talk about. I've left this best till last. There's custom supporting. Custom supporting on a wooden coaster. So this is relatively difficult to do, and I ended up having to do quite a bit of research on how Intimin prefabs have their custom supporting, and then how wooden coasters have custom supporting. So the likes of GCI and the other coasters manufacturers that escape my memory as I'm talking, which is pretty typical, right? Hey, it's Saturday, it's allowed. And so I looked into how they're supported, and the obvious thing is that you need to support wherever there's either height or laterals involved with the coaster. So for example, the lift hill, it's height, and then over on the corner here, or corners, we have laterals. So over here, it's laterals. And so I then looked into, well, does it have to be consistent? Does it have to be symmetrical? Because not all coasters have them symmetrical. And you Google them, Google pictures of wooden coasters, and you'll see that you've got various different coasters, and they're not always extended supports, and they're not always symmetrical. And it just gets a bit confusing. It just gets a bit minefield. So what I ended up finding out is that you have to custom support, or you have to support on the area of most vulnerability. And in this instance, because this is on the side of a hill, it's most vulnerable on the side that the hill is the lowest. So you have to do fewer supports and less supporting along the height of the hill, because essentially the supports are going to be pushing that down the hill. But you have to do more supporting on the site of vulnerability, which is the lower part of the hill. So that's why this lift hill, at first glance, you'd look at it and go, that's not real. There's so many things that are wrong about this. But actually, it's not. It's engineering. And I'm not an engineer, but from an engineering perspective, this is actually correct. Because this part of the hill is higher. And the more supports you add here, the more you're going to be pushing this lift hill down the hill. But the idea of the extra supports is it's still supporting, it's still offering support where it's most vulnerable, but you have the massive supports down this side because it's tumbling down a hill and you need to stop it from toppling over, especially in the wind. So if the wind's coming from this way, you need something to stop it. And the angle of this depends on the coaster. It can be as much as 45 degrees. So the biggest angle you want is 45 degrees, and the shallowest angle you want is 20 degrees. Depending on your circumstances, depending on your situation. And then height-wise, this would be about the height that you would start to custom support. Same principle, you support it on its most vulnerable side, but you also support it on the other side just to make sure that it is both ways. But corners like this are actually okay. You don't need to custom support these corners because the height and the speed that it takes it isn't actually enough to tear itself apart. You are actually okay there. This one here needed custom supporting, so this, really loud coaster going by. This one is a bit of a strange one because this is actually double. So this bit where it's going round now is actually double supported already, because you've got the track on the left hand side and you've got the extra support. So it just needs the supporting on the right hand side, and it needs that supporting on the right hand side because you've also got the weight of the track on its right hand side as well. So this is its vulnerable spot. This is its vulnerable point. And again, same principle with all of the supporting. 45-degree angle, bedded into the ground, and then you just make sure that the beams aren't going to get in the way of the actual coaster train itself, and you're not going to chop someone's head or hands off like that. Look, see. This, I researched this quite a lot. This doesn't need supporting, and I thought it did. I really thought it did, because its point of vulnerability is here, right? Because it's on the side of a hill and all sorts. But no, this is actually okay. When you look at the laterals on the actual in-game meters, this is actually okay for its laterals. It's not tearing itself apart. It's quite well supported, and because it's banked in, it's transferring all of the lateral g-forces into vertical g-forces. So all of the stress is actually happening vertically rather than laterally. So you're okay in this one because it's overbanked, and then this bend is supported by this bend anyway, so you don't need the extra supports. But here it does, because the track falls away, so it doesn't have its double support. It's not entirely banked properly. It's not entirely banked to its maximum point, so you do still have lateral Gs, and so you support it on its vulnerable side, which is a little bit down the hill. Don't need it really this side, but I have put it in, and I've made it symmetrical. Just breaking my own rules. But no, the reason for this though, this part of the hill is relatively flat. It's not entirely certain which way it would sort of have its stresses. The wind's blowing this way, then the track's going to be vulnerable on this side. If the wind's blowing from this way, the track is vulnerable this side. So that's just something to have in mind. Here, no need. It's well supported, and it's well supported by the hill as well. It's protected by the hill, so you're okay. It's not tall enough. It's not lateral forces. It's not everything. You're good to go. Here, it is, because it hasn't started to bank yet. So you're just starting to support it on the side that it would be heading towards, because that's where the laterals would be. But you don't need it this side, and even if you did need it this side, you've got nowhere to put it anyway. So no amount of supporting here would actually help the laterals on this side. This would probably be a piece of track that would need to be replaced quite a bit. And then the same principle on this turnaround. So it's already banked, so your laterals are being transferred to positive and negative Gs, your verticals and whatever. But you do need it this side, because you're starting to raise the height slightly, so you're actually changing the compound of those g-forces, how those g-forces are presented to the coaster, to the track. And at the top here, it stops the banking, so you need something to then absorb along here. So that's what I've done. And then as the coaster gets lower to the ground, there's no need for the supporting. But the only thing I did then do was, you saw this in the previous update, but it's still here as well. I've just put the retaining wall in, just to make sure that this road and everything is then safe from collapse, because this would be its most vulnerable point. So the retaining wall, nothing special, it's just a concrete wall, but I think I'm going to make this a head chopper element. I think this is too good an opportunity to miss, to not have some kind of head chopper element. So anyway, that's your custom supporting 101. I didn't do too much to the supports itself. They are just there. This is going to be one of those moments where you have to squint and believe it's real, because otherwise, if you're going to make this ridiculously accurate, you need to custom support the entire thing. And we just don't have the small pieces available to do all of the nuts and the bolts and all of the fine little details that you have with custom supporting a wooden coaster. I mean, you can make beams realistic enough, that's fine. But if you're wanting to make the ultra realistic like we're going for, you also need the pieces to do the nuts, the bolts, the small wood pieces, the small intricacies that they all have. We just don't have it in game, so you have to know when to stop. You have to know when good is good enough, and this is one of those instances where it's connected, it's all in the right places, and the detail is where it's needed. So that's kind of where you're going with that one. So anyway, that's enough for this update, I think. That's me prattling on for some more time. How 250 of you put up with this, I never know. But yeah, so I'm going to carry on. I've got this area to do. I'll probably do one smaller update just before I do all of the fine detailing parts, just to show you how it's all going, because I think this is probably going to be a bit too much of a jump just to go, hey, done. So anyway, I'm going to carry on. I'll see you for the next one. Let's do a different viewpoint for this one, shall we? So I wanted to do a real quick update just because I'm about to start that final detailing phase where everything starts to come to life, because I'm doing the flowers and the bins and the benches and the lampposts and all of that sort of stuff. You know, those final details, the final TMTK pass and everything. But I wanted to show you what I was talking about in the previous update about the roof. And I want to show you something else as well that I've been working on that sort of came to life. So this is the view that I really wanted to achieve, coming from the courtyard, just the top of the lift hill and just the top of the first drop coming through. And if you can imagine sitting here having something to eat and hearing the screams of the coaster as it goes over the top, it's just going to be awesome. But you can't see anything else of the coaster from this point, so it's like beautifully hidden, creating that intrigue. And then inside, then I'll do the full tour when we do the final detailing past everything, but inside I've just started to put all of the finer details in. I've just started to put some of the posters and the service counters and everything in, and then over this side exactly the same thing, just sort of that fine detail. I don't know if I need anything immediately in front of the shops. I haven't quite decided whether I want to put like queue lines in and stuff yet. I'll sort that out, I expect. It's part of it. And then over in the ride shop, exactly the same thing. A nice simple ride shop design, your typical setup, a couple of printers, a couple of computers, a couple of tills, a few screens ready to put the photos and everything on, and then just a couple of souvenir-y type things and some space for the ride name. Secret. And then nothing really changed in the queue line. Like I say, this is now going to come to life as I start to do all of the nature and everything. But the biggie, this one here. So I decided I did want it to be a head chopper in the end. And actually, we don't use effects on any of the coasters so far. Like, we use sound effects over on the booster bikes, but I stopped just short of using the steam for the actual tyres and everything, because it's a bit cliche and probably would be a bit too expensive for the park to run, but I kind of figured, with this being the park's potential headline attraction, you know, this is the one that they would have spent a lot of money on, although as cheaply and as efficiently as they possibly could, they would have spent money on it, right? So I kind of figured that they would have like this head chopper, and I took the cues very much from the Voyage, Holiday World, Holiday Park, whatever it's called, over in America, with regards to the actual head chopper itself and how it should look and behave. So yeah, this is kind of how I settled for it. And then I decided actually it probably would have some kind of a mist inside. So I've gone for the idea of using mist, and yes, there's an electric cabinet here and we're using mist. So this would be non-water based mist, because it's drier. It's water based mist is cheaper to run, because it's just water, right? You just vaporize water and that's it. But this would be your almost like dry ice style mist. And you can imagine actually a park like Reigate Lake, this would probably, oh, Jules, the park like Reigate Lake would probably cheap out, right? And it would be broken most of the days. But hey, this is Planet Coaster. The effects never break down. It always works. So yeah, this is kind of what I wanted actually. That it just wanted to have that effect inside. And then I'm just going to pause it so that the train doesn't go past. Then I wanted to have the idea of lights and everything inside. So you'd have emergency lights that are on the left hand side, and then at night time these lights here, they're red. So you would have some kind of lighting effect on this area. And then I don't know whether that needs to be higher or not, but I've just put an HVAC unit on the inside as well, just to suck out any of the extra mist and everything. And it also, you use this kind of effect to make sure that the mist rises, because you're creating a bit of a vacuum in here. So rather than the mist just settling in the bottom and not actually having any kind of effect for it to fill the entire space, you would just put some kind of HVAC or anything in here, and then it sort of creates a vacuum and encourages the mist to actually rise higher. So that's what I'm doing there. And obviously, because it's plumbing, it needs all of its plumbing in. So yeah, that's what I've done all along the bottom side here, just making sure that it's got all of its necessaries. And then the same with the cables for the lights. They've all got bits that they need. Just need some tidying up, obviously. And like I say, I don't know whether I'm going to move that HVAC unit higher or not. So anyway, that was the real quick update I wanted to do, because this area is going to come to life with flowers and trees and everything now. So that's what I'm going to do, and I will see you for the final one. And just like that, we are done. We have a name, and Tapio is, I think that's how you say it, is officially open to the public. So for those of you that are wondering, that's actually the Finnish god of the forest. The original name that I had chosen, which was a Roman god of forest, didn't really fit, so I've chosen Tapio or Tapio, or however you say it. I'm sorry if you're Finnish and I've just butchered your language, but there we go. Our wooden coaster is officially open, and we are done with everything else. So let's take a tour. Let's see where we are. So this is the main plaza area. I've got lots of work that still needs to be done down the left hand side here. We know what's coming here, right? So that's going to be a future episode. And likewise right at the back, there's loads of stuff that still needs to be done, but that's because that's another episode. And then the outside perimeter is also another episode in its own right. So we're just focusing on the actual coaster area itself. So this is the main plaza area looking up the hill, and the view has now really taken shape. Like really like how this has turned out. So this is the view that you get just as the train passes. Look at that for timing. And so you can see right up the lift hill, and I've spaced the trees and everything out so that it complements that actual view. So you can now see that it just dominates the skyline as you walk around the corner, and those custom supports, just like they make it pop out. Like it looks really good. Like how this has happened. And then obviously you're looking up the hill, and you can see all of the buildings and everything that we've put together. With the stairs on the left and the ramp on the right. So you walk up, and there's the entrance. So we have our ride signs and everything. So you've got the queue sign and the normal health and safety signs and everything. And then you come through to the main queue, fast pass, etc. And then you walk the queue. It's quite a long queue, actually, as it turns out. So even though I've got the guests at the moment limited to 1,500 guests, you can already see how many are actually attracted by this coaster. So 1,500 guests in a park of this size is pretty much nothing. And you can see that this is attracting the majority of, or quite a crowd, let's say. So anyway, walking through, and you come into the first cattle pen, you come into the second cattle pen. Oh god, can you imagine queuing in all this? Underneath the actual lift hill itself then, and up into more cattle pens. And then just when you think your cattle pen nightmare is over, you've got two more. Two more. But I like how these are actually come across. I like how the concrete and everything sort of finishes it off. It looks as it should. And then to the massive cattle pen. This time though, unlike the SLC where we made absolutely no care about the cattle pens being under shade and everything, I've used quite a few trees just to dapple it out and to make sure that we've got the shade available. Because this would be quite an intense queue, and I wanted to use the terrain quite effectively as well. And I noticed that when I was doing all of this, I was using so many trees. It was almost like embarrassingly so. It was like I was in the middle of a forest. So I've ended up having to thin them out. So I had trees all along here and everything. But actually, I quite like how this has turned out on the hill, because it gives that space a bit of space to breathe. And likewise with the other side here, I wanted to keep the view going up to the ride photo booth in the courtyard. I wanted to keep that almost unobstructed, and by putting trees in the middle here, it was sort of obstructing that, and it's just spoilt the view a little bit. So I've actually kept the either side of the station treeless so that it breathes a little bit. So anyway, we come then into the station, so we're still running alongside the fast pass queue, and then we come into the station where we've now got our staff and stuff. Minimal station. There's not really a lot that you can do in this station, but obviously the detailing comes from the beams and the wood. Well, that's beams, and the rope and everything that's on the ceiling. And then we come out. Obviously, you're going to get a POV of this shortly, so I will post that at the end of this episode. Then you come down the ramp and you come to the ride photo booth. So there we go. We've now got everything that we need to. The photos are all in. Ride name and everything up there, and CCL, obviously Roman numerals, for 250 as a massive thank you to the 250 of you that have subscribed. Remembering though that 1,000 and I come back, revisit this and RMC it, so you know that's out there. And then we come up the stairs again, and we come to like a little bit of a mini plaza, and then into the courtyard. And this is now what the courtyard looks like in its whole glory. I put a tree actually strategically placed just behind the courtyard just to hide it even more. So now the actual coaster just goes over the tree just to give that little bit more intrigue. And look, it looks so good like that. I love it. So good. Down it goes. And then the courtyard itself, I didn't actually decide to do much more detailing in here. I thought it needed just to be a bit more of an open space. I didn't really want to clutter it out so much. I quite liked how it was, so that's what I did. I kept it as it was. Obviously, I think this was in the last update anyway. The courtyard sign is now there, so you can now see it. And then I did a little bit of work on Storm just to bring it a bit up to scratch, making sure that everything is as I wanted it to there, and the sightline now is actually really good. And obviously what's going to come here is going to change the sightline for Storm anyway, so all of my worry about it being right next to the maintenance shed and right next to the access road and everything is actually going to be alleviated a little bit when what's coming in here comes in here, because this is going to hide a fair bit, or it's going to create a bit of distraction anyway from what's coming in here. So maintenance area then, not really much has changed, just again a bit of like detailing and making sure that everything is in the correct place. So the ride area signs that took forever. Don't underestimate how long they take. Fencing and ride signs are just tedious, but they make it what it is, right? They're needed. So yeah, so the maintenance area, hello. And with I wanted to keep this, right? So I keep talking all the time about nature not having any boundaries and not knowing boundaries. And it kind of felt like underneath all of this track would be really overgrown, really like difficult to maintain. You wouldn't be able to chop stuff back very easily. And as I was placing these down, I was like, oh no, you can't have it clipping through the track. That's not very realistic. But actually, yeah, it is. Like, I've seen some POVs and some videos that are really, really quite overgrown underneath the track, with occasion that it's popping out. Now, this probably not to this extent, because as the train's going over, it's going to be ripping the tree apart, right? So you're going to have that element of natural gardening going on. It's even a word. But no, I thought, actually, I'm going to keep this. I am going to keep it because it gives it that sort of bit more realism. And then likewise with it spilling out here, I just wanted it to feel like it was overgrown underneath, and like it's really difficult to get to, but it's sort of still kept. And likewise underneath the transfer track is exactly the same. I had this principle of, well, nature doesn't know boundaries. Nature doesn't know that this is a fence. It's going to grow through the fence, and there will be an element, like I say, of natural gardening happening as the transfer track is moved back and whatever. But it's still going to grow through the fence, because you definitely cannot get underneath here to maintain it. You would have to physically remove the fence and garden underneath it. So that's what I went for. And actually, I quite like how it's there. And it also gives a sense of age of the ride as well. It ages the ride a little bit. It's no longer brand new. It's like things aren't pristine anymore. It gives that effect, and that's something that actually is quite difficult to achieve in Planet Coaster, is the aging, because everything in Planet Coaster is so well done and so believably new that sometimes you need to do things just to age a ride a little bit. So that's what I did, and I'm not sorry. So yeah, and then we just come back into the actual station. So yes, this is how it's looking. I'm really chuffed with how it's come to life. I don't really know what else there is. What else there is to say? I do need to ask you guys though. What's next? Like, obviously, the next episode is going to be the last we're going to do before the bringing it to life to put onto the workshop, right? So, obviously, episode 19 is going to be the getting workshop ready, and I've got a snagging list that's massive that's going to have enough content to have an entire episode to say, hey, these are the things that I'm toying with across the park, and these are the things that I've now changed since I've done some more research and whatever. So the next episode is going to be the last thing we build, so I'm going to throw it open to you guys. For those of you that have stuck to the end of this video, you guys get the say, right? And it serves the others right for closing the video early, right? So harsh. What do we do? Do we do this area, which, spoiler alert, is a roller coaster? I will tell you nothing else. Do we do this area that's a roller coaster, or do we do this area that's the rapids? All you need to do is leave a comment on the pinned thing that I'm going to put on there. Just coaster or rapids. That's all. That's all you're knowing. And that'll be then the next episode. You have until... I normally start filming on a Tuesday, so you have until Tuesday to let me know. And the winner, well, will be the final episode of the series before we wrap it up and do the full park tour. So here's the area. This is what we've done over the last 2 episodes, and look how good it is. It's really, really awesome. So guys, thank you so much to every single one of you that have subscribed, the 250 of you that are mentalists that like listening to these videos. Really genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for watching to the end of the video as well. That really helps. Leaving a like, leaving a comment, all of that stuff, all of it helps the algorithms of YouTube to actually make my channel pop out there in other ways. And so you know what to do. Share the absolute living daylights out of everything, because like I say, 1,000 subs and this Woodie gets RMC'd. And that's only going to happen as quickly as I get there, right? So at the moment, the projection is May next year. Let's see if we can get that. Let's see if we can get that sooner. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being with me. Please look after yourselves. And until the next time we speak, I will see you soon. Take care.